Okay, listen to this, because what I'm about to tell you sounds more like a drama than a serious government hearing.
Chair, I recognize the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Keating.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to take my time to react to the testimony already given. The three pillars that each of the witnesses and the Secretary highlighted. Pillar number one, restore the warrior ethos. You know, I've had the privilege in this committee to see firsthand a special window of our troops, their courage, their tenacity, commitment. You don't have to restore the warrior ethos, sir. It's already there. We've never lost it. Pillar two, I just want to highlight something that is a concern. Pillar two is the border security issue. And among that, I'm really worried about the agreement with El Salvador that exists. I think it's very cloudy. We don't know exactly what they're getting in return for their commitment to house the hellhole prisons, in the hellhole prisons they have. People that are shipped there, transported there illegally. But there's problems with that. It violates the Constitution, number one. It violates the First Step Act that President Trump paraded around and took so much credit for in his first term, he and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. It violates the Leahy Law, which prohibits federal money to be used for prisons of that type. It violates the Foreign Assistance and Transparency and Accountability Act that our Secretary of State was proud sponsor of, that demands taxpayer accountability for monies, because all we know is the White House has said they've given El Salvador, given their strongman, Bukele, $6 million. Then they're holding another $15 million in international narcotics and control and law enforcement to the side for prospective use here. And of concern, too, is we're now transferring helicopters, military assets, to Bukele. We're giving him helicopters. And I'm concerned about that. Supposedly it's there for humanitarian reasons. It's being taken away from drug control task force, dealing with the fentanyl issue. And now it's there for humanitarian reasons in Bukele's control. And I'm just worried about going down the road here. I think there should be strict oversight of what they're getting from the U.S. If that's not there, and there's dark money and dark assets being passed, we could have the makings of another Iran-Contra. Thirdly, the third pillar, deterrence. And I look to what every expert militarily, from a security standpoint, said is the greatest deterrent that we have with China and Russia, and our greatest weakness if we lose it. And that's the war in Ukraine. If we fail to support Ukraine, Ukraine loses, that's a green light for China. That's just not my opinion. That's virtually every security expert. We have something China and Russia don't have. We have a coalition of 50 countries, 50 dealing together. They don't have anything near that. Yet, you've attacked that alliance. You said they're pathetic. You called them freeloaders. They have paid, and we want more money, and they're giving more money for their own defense. They've given $199 billion towards Ukraine, more than the U.S., by the way. And they're not freeloaders when they came to our assistance at 9/11. They suffered thousands of casualties, several hundred deaths. They're young men and women, sacrificed to defend Article 5, the only time it was exercised for the United States. They're not freeloaders dealing with that. And yet today, you attacked one of them saying that now you've confirmed that the U.S. has plans in place to invade the territory of a founding member of NATO, Denmark. That's not being That's not being strong. It's also chaotic. This is the chaos cabinet when it comes to Ukraine. Secretary of the Treasury, Putin is a war criminal. Trump's chief negotiator, Putin is trustworthy. He's not a bad guy. Secretary of State, Putin was a war criminal, I guess, but now he's not. He doesn't know. Trump says Ukraine was the aggressor. Secretary of State says Russia was the aggressor. You, sir, the Secretary of Defense, said Russia was the aggressor. The chair of Joint Chiefs said yesterday that Putin would even stop at Ukraine. The Trump ambassador resigned because of this policy, and I think Vice President Vance said it best. He said he doesn't care what happens to Ukraine, one way or the other. That is not strength. That is not using our coalition. That is not deterrence. You're wrong on all your pillars. I yield back.
Gentleman
The
yields.
chair gave the floor to Mr. Keating from Massachusetts, and right away, he jumped in saying, "Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I need to respond to what I just heard." He started talking about the three big pillars that the witnesses and the secretary had mentioned. For the first pillar, restoring the warrior spirit, Mr. Keating didn't hold back. He said, "You don't need to restore anything. I've seen our troops myself. Their bravery, toughness, and commitment are all still there. We never lost that warrior ethos." Then he moved to the second pillar, border security. And this is where it got really messy. He talked about the agreement with El Salvador and said it looked very shady. No one even knows what El Salvador is really getting in return for housing those so-called hellhole prisons. He argued that this deal breaks a bunch of important laws. The Constitution, the First Step Act that Trump and Jared Kushner always bragged about, the ley law that stops U.S. money from funding prisons like that, and even the Foreign Assistance Transparency Act, which was created to make sure taxpayer money is used properly. He said the White House already gave El Salvador's strongman leader, Bukele, $6 million, while another $15 million is sitting there for law enforcement. On top of that, the U.S. is now sending helicopters to Bukele. Officially, they're supposed to be for humanitarian reasons, but those helicopters were originally meant for fighting drug cartels and stopping fentanyl. Now Bukele controls them. Mr. Keating warned that if no one is watching where the money and equipment are really going, this could turn into another Iran-Contra scandal. Finally, he talked about the third pillar, deterrence. He said every military expert agrees that supporting Ukraine is the most important defense against China and Russia. If Ukraine falls, then China will see it as a green light to move forward. He explained that the U.S. has something China and Russia don't, and that's a coalition of 50 countries working together. These allies have already given $199 billion to Ukraine, which is more than the U.S. itself. And they are not freeloaders. After September 11th, those same allies rushed to America's side. They lost thousands of soldiers and hundreds of lives defending NATO's Article 5 for the U.S. But instead of honoring that sacrifice, the administration called them pathetic and freeloaders. He was especially angry about new claims that the U.S. has secret plans to invade Denmark, one of the founding members of NATO. Mr. Keating called all of this pure chaos. He said the Secretary of the Treasury calls Putin a war criminal, while Trump's negotiator says Putin is trustworthy. The Secretary of State can't make up his mind. Sometimes Russia is the aggressor, sometimes Ukraine. The Secretary of Defense and the Joint Chiefs both say Russia started the war and won't stop at Ukraine. Even Trump's ambassador quit over this confusion. And then he quoted Vice President Vance, who said he doesn't care what happens to Ukraine at all. Keating ended with one last sharp point. He said this is not strength, it's not leadership, and it's not deterrence. Then he closed by saying, "You're wrong on all three pillars," and gave back his time. So what do you think? Are these leaders really protecting us, or are they just creating more chaos? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you found this breakdown eye-opening, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that cut through the noise.